Hello to the pessimistic, optimistic, and everyone in between. My name is Connor Philippi, and welcome back to the Minnesotan Sports Podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, it is Packers week. It is the one of 2 weeks during the season where the games mean just a little bit more, and for a different reason than last week's. Because last week's the game meant a lot because we were on the verge of potentially getting rid of some players at the trade deadline if we had lost that game, and also I was against a really good team we were trying to make a statement against. This is a situation where it's just a team we hate, division rival. I mean, I don't think anyone really needs to be explained to them what this means to Vikings fans to be able to beat the Packers, especially going into Lambeau to try and beat them. And of course, I'm wearing my Randy Moss jersey. I had to for this video. The infamous shooting the moon to the fans and the reason why so many Vikings fans started to dislike Joe Buck. And I didn't really talk about in my raw reaction to the win over the 49ers, just the frustration with the calling by Joe Buck. I mean, he gave us one of the most exciting calls of all time for Vikings fans, which was the Minneapolis Miracle. But after that, or before and after that, he's just been a menace to the Vikings and doesn't seem to like them and calls against them all the time. But yeah, that just famous call by Joe Buck saying that Randy Moss even pretending to moon the fans was a disgusting act. Maybe if he'd actually pulled his pants down, it would be different. But the fact that he even pretended to do it and Joe Buck was like that mad, it's still a weird thing. And it just birthed this whole multiple generations of Vikings fans starting to dislike Joe Buck, and it's continued ever since. But anyway, huge game for the Vikings to try and win here against the Packers. Not only to make another statement win and try and beat the Packers again, because any Packers win, we could be completely winless in a season and it would still mean a lot to beat the Packers. But there's a lot more added on to this one because we're trying to start a stretch of games where they are winnable games for a team like the Vikings. And in order to get back on track, we need to win at least 4 of these upcoming 6 against very easy teams like the Falcons coming up after the Packers, Saints, Raiders, Broncos. I mean, these are very winnable games for this team. Not saying that means we're going to win it though. And we're still 3-4, and the importance of this game is we could be 500 after Sunday if we can find a way to win this one. History against the Packers, Vikings fans know that this is a storied rivalry. 57, 65, and 3 all time against the Packers. So trying to improve that to 58 here on Sunday. And also Kirk Cousins is 4-4-1 versus the Packers. And of course the reason why that's an uneven number is because he didn't play in that one game where it was the end of a couple seasons ago where he was out with COVID and we ended up getting crushed because we got our backup in there and it was rough. I'm not saying that Kirk necessarily would have won that game because we were not going to make the playoffs that year, but we still had the benefit. So Kirk kind of got the benefit there of not being handed the loss in that one. But even so, he has the opportunity to now get ahead of 500 against the Packers all time as a Viking as well. So a lot on his plate as well. But we know all about the rest of the history, the shooting the moon, the crazy catch on Sunday Night Football by the Packers, and everything in between. I could go do a whole episode about that, but that's not what this one is about. Going into this actual game, let's take a look at the injuries to the Packers and Vikings. And for the Vikings, it is Ezra Cleveland who didn't play last week, and Reisner played in, relief of him. And I think Vikings fans are looking at that saying, do we really want Cleveland back? Because this offensive line was phenomenal against the 49ers, but it was just 1 week. And I don't know, I don't know, we'll see. I feel like it's kind of a smaller separation than I would have previously thought between these two players, but we'll have to see what happens. It's not like it would be just a game-changing play to have either one of them in relief of each other. We'll have to see there. But Brian Asamoah is also questionable, as well as TJ Hawkinson being questionable. He had a couple, injuries in that game, shaken up a couple times. Another reason to get mad at Joe Buck was the stupid Kevin O'Connell telling Hawkinson to go down. with 9 minutes left in the second quarter and all three timeouts. And Joe Buck was somehow talking about how that was him trying to cheat by telling Hawkinson to go down. It was like, oh, we caught him on camera. Again, I could spout out about that, but that's not what we're here to talk about. But yeah, Hawkinson is hurt. We'll have to see if he starts because he is a big piece for the Vikings with Justin Jefferson out. Other wide receivers were able to hold their own with Addison being the star, but still, it's a huge blow for Hawkinson to potentially be out. But we'll see what happens there. For the Packers, slew of Packers out. First of all, slew of Packers questionable, but out is Darnell Savage. He is on the IR after some calf complications. A huge, guy for the Packers to be out and for a safety in the middle of the field there. I feel like the Vikings can potentially exploit that, and we'll talk about that in our keys to the game. Luke Musgrave, questionable, not quite as big of a factor there. Aaron Jones remains questionable. Jair Alexander is questionable. He's dealing with some back issues. Him potentially being out is another huge thing for the Packers. If Jair Alexander is out, they are in much bigger trouble against us. And then Preston Smith, a really good linebacker, also questionable. So the Packers are kind of ailing right now, and I think they need a good amount of those questionable guys to play in this game if they're going to feel good about it about this game against the Vikings. So with all those things aside, let's get into the keys to this game. And the main one here for the Vikings, the general overarching one throughout this entire game, the Vikings cannot fall into the trap that so many teams do after a win like this. The Vikings come into this as a huge, statement win against the 49ers at home, Monday Night Football. Kirk plays out of his mind on a primetime game, specifically a Monday Night Football game. We seem to still, play really well without Justin Jefferson, and it's getting people to think, hey, what if Justin Jefferson comes back when this offense is finally clicking, and how good this offense could be after that? The defense is finally playing well. I mean, there's so many things to be positive about and a big statement win, but what happened to the Vikings last year when this happened? A huge statement win against the Bills, and we got absolutely crushed by the Cowboys. Now, this year's Packers are not last year's Cowboys, regular season-wise, and, there's all that, but doesn't change the fact that this is a huge trap game for the Vikings because you come off of a big emotional win. We've seen it so many times with other teams and with the Vikings in the past few years. Come off a huge game where you prove yourself, and it's very easy to fall back down after that and to get too high up in the clouds about the previous game. And to get the momentum building from that win and to get confidence from that win, to increase that level of confidence is not a bad thing. It's a really good thing, but there's a difference between having confidence and having positive momentum and keeping your brain in the past and remembering that game and being more excited about winning the last one than focusing your mind on this one. And if the Packers get out to an early lead and the Vikings are still, in that mindset, then we could be sent back reeling and it'll be tough to come back. So it's a huge thing for us to not fall into that trap. The second one, more of a technical, more of these technical aspects of the game. Brian Flores was able to, with this defensive line, get actual pressure on Brock Purdy. One of the biggest criticisms of Flores' defense so far is that they have blitzed more than any other team in the league, but they weren't able to get to the quarterback nearly as much as they would have hoped. And when you have that many guys crowding around the quarterback and none of them can actually get to the QB, any quarterback that's able to scramble and improvise is going to find someone open because we just don't have as many guys down the field in that instance. So that's one of the major things that Flores has not been able to do, and then he finally was able to do it against Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy was very uncomfortable in this game, and it was a major factor for how the Vikings were able to pull this one out in a close game against one of the best teams in the entire league. If we can continue to do that and continue to get pressure, I mean, we can make Jordan Love uncomfortable. Jordan Love, in games where he has not been sitting comfortably in the pocket, has not been good. This Packers offensive line has really needed to help him out. And Jordan Love has played fairly well in those games where he has been more comfortable in the pocket. But if the Vikings can put a lot of pressure on him, like Flores has done, in the last few games and actually get to him this time, we could be really in business defensively. In the running game, the third key to the game, keep churning away at the running game. It's looking like we are leaning further and further towards this committee approach. Might be able to get Chandler in there a little bit, but mainly it's going to be Akers and Madison, and we'll have to see how that works out. I have Madison on fantasy, so I'm secretly hoping that we can still play Madison plenty. But at the end of the day, it's whatever running back seems to be doing the best. And sometimes with these committee approaches with two running backs that run in different ways, that can be a big, positive factor when a defense has to get different looks from two different running backs coming into the game back and forth. I mean, you saw, Kamara and Murray a few years ago, and been many other examples I'm not going to go over where the committee approach actually helps to get your running game to play more efficiently. This run blocking has been better in recent weeks, and it was great last week against the 49ers. So just keep churning away at it, and the Vikings cannot shy away from it early in the game if it doesn't work out on the first drive, because again, that play action is so volatile for Kirk Cousins and this offense. It is so important to get that play action set up and to make that a big part of the offense. On top of that, also, the offense exploit the middle of the field. We talked about this with Darnell Savage being on the IR. We learned that just a couple weeks ago, or a couple days ago, sorry. And so, even without Justin Jefferson, this should be a good opportunity for the Vikings to. I see us converting a lot on these third and shorts again, because their middle core of their defense is just not as healthy as it has been in the rest of the season. And Jair Alexander is also questionable, so he's not going to be 100% even if he plays. So I feel like mixing in some deep shots, taking some risks, but also understanding that you got to be on the lookout for some of those plays in the middle of the field. That's why it's so crucial that TJ Hawkinson does play in this game, is because I think a lot of those opportunities are going to be available as the game goes on. So again, keep a level head about, making sure you're not taking too many shots down the field, but also don't keep checking it down. Like I still have, even as good as this offense has been, you know, outside of the 20s anyway, as good as this offense has been, we still are checking it down too often on plays where we should at least be throwing it away, or at the very least take a shot down the field on a 3rd and long or a 2nd and 15. Just take that shot. Worst case scenario, you send it down the field and they intercept it at their own 20 and it's like a punt. Just take more risks. I don't care how many interceptions Kirk Cousins throws. Just take more risks down the field. And then we have the 5th of 6 key factors here, which is score in the red zone. I mean, it's been the same issue all season long. The Vikings easily could have lost that game on Monday night due to the fact that they were not able to get in the red zone. 2 more instances in that game where the offense played really well, but 2 more instances where we were at the 1-yard line, didn't score a touchdown, and at the 2-yard line, we didn't score a touchdown. You can't be within the 5 twice and only get 6 points out of that. And, the fact is, yes, this game is all about getting some lucky bounces. I mean, the Vikings could have won 2 or 3 of those early games if some balls had bounced the right way. And so it kind of went more in our favor in that game where Addison was able to rip that ball away. But the fact is still, we easily could have lost that game if that momentum swing hadn't happened before the half, because of the fact that we were not able to get the ball in the end zone. So it'll be huge to get the ball in the end zone against the Packers. And then finally, the final key to the game here is just keep a level head in general. We talked about not falling into the trap after an emotional win. Just in a general sense, don't get overwhelmed by the fact that this is a rivalry game against the Packers. Don't get overwhelmed by the fact that you're playing at Lambeau. You can use those things as fuel and use those things as motivation to want to play better, but don't let that get in your head. Understand that the Vikings right now are the better team. I mean, the entire league knows it. The Packers are not playing well right now. They just came off of a loss to the Broncos, the Sean Payton-led Broncos. It's about as low as you can get. And the Vikings are the better team. They have to play like it, and they will win this game. If they don't, it'll be because they beat themselves, and they have multiple times this season, and that's all it's going to come down to. If we throw, if we have some stupid turnovers, maybe this game we can actually go and go through the first drive of the game without giving up a turnover. But if we give up too many turnovers, and if we don't win the turnover battle, and if we just keep shooting ourselves in the foot in the red zone, that's how we're going to lose this game. It will not be because the Packers just outplay us after we play a good game. We have to play a bad game in order to lose this one. So just keep a level head, understanding you're the better team, and again, just that mix of not getting too flustered and taking too many risks, but just kind of keeping that balance. Final score predictions for this game. I'm going to say the Vikings win this one 27-23 in a big way, and I think it'll still be close because that's just the way things go. NFC North games, Vikings and Packers always seem to keep it close unless there's just a really big skill difference between the two teams that year. For the most part, these games are usually pretty close. I'm hoping that the Vikings can potentially win this by more than a touchdown and get their first win or loss this season by more or less than 7 points. We'll have to see what happens there. But final prediction 27-23 Vikings, and they will get to 500 this season for the first time. So let me know what you think in the comments for what you expect out of this game. Do you think that these are also going to be the keys to the game? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you're most excited to see out of this game. And I'm just really looking forward to this one. It should be a lot of fun. But thank you so much for watching. Please let me know in the comments again what you think, and I'll be making my raw reaction that will be coming out right around the end of the game on Sunday. So thanks again, and I'll see you on the flip side.